You have to have patience because you didn't gain all the weight in the same day. You're not going to lose it in the same day. And you're going to see those success stories from people in these groups where they've lost 100 pounds in 6 months. That's not realistic for most people,
Mhm.
but you have to be realistic and understand that that is the way that them, but you can't judge yourself with them.
If you've been watching, you know that I take my ingredients very seriously, but there are 3 companies that I have found that I absolutely love. Check the description for discount codes. Hello, my name is Adrienne. This is a series where I talk to different people who've inspired me to live a healthier life. I'm so excited for my guest today. I have Dustin from Keto Simple, and he has so much more experience in this community than I do. He's a fantastic YouTuber and he's out discussing things out in social media and a huge helper. So I'm so excited to have him here today to have some discussions about meat eating and life and nutrition. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be here with you. We just met like a whole week ago.
I know, but I actually feel like I've known you for a few months because somehow I started following you a few months ago, and you are one of the few people who consistently comes up on my feed, and I see what you're doing and how much you are in the community. So it was so cool to meet you. If you have not been to a meetup, I highly suggest it. Go meet your friends for real.
Yeah. Yes. And if
But
you don't have any local meetups, start one.
yes, 100%. It doesn't have to cost any money. Everybody can just bring their sardines or whatever you eat. Okay, cool. So I'm wondering if you could start just by telling us. So I see that you became keto or you switched to a keto lifestyle in 2016. Is that right?
That's correct.
What
Yes.
was life like before then? Like, how did you get to this area that this was going to be your new lifestyle?
Sure. Yeah. So I never dreamed this is what how things were going to work out. But so in 2016, I was dealing with a couple of things. I had a umbilical hernia that was sticking out of my belly button, so I didn't have a belly button anymore. So like a fist size thing coming out of my tummy, and I let it sit there for way too long because that's what you do, right? You don't take care of things. You just let it go. It'll be fine. And finally, the wife being a nurse finally gets onto me enough to where we decide to go and get it taken care of. And in the process, I was also starting to deal with my sleep apnea. So I was going through getting a machine, getting tested, and all that stuff because I didn't think it was that big of a deal until I got tested. And then they were like, please, please take this machine. And so, in all of that, you go to the doctor a lot. And I stepped on the scale at the doctor's office and I was over 420 pounds. And you know that you're getting big. You ignore it, you pretend like it's not happening, but you're involved because I was starting to go and buy bigger clothes. I was buying 50-inch pants and I wear the, pants under the gut. So if I would have been wearing them above like where you're supposed to, probably would have been 60 plus at that point and 5X t-shirts. So you know that this is happening, but you don't see it necessarily. I mean, you're involved in your own life, but you're not even really a spectator in it. It's just the weirdest thing to look back on. And so we decided once we got the hernia taken care of and all of this, we were gonna go low carb because we were completely new to everything. Low carb to us, we're like, well, what's a carb? We started off
Mhm.
with what is a carb? Why are we gonna go low carb? What has carbs in it? We had no idea until we go to the grocery store and we start pulling all the healthy things off the shelf
Mm.
quinoa and oats and raisins and fruit snacks and all these things that are supposed to be healthy and they're just loaded with carbs. We're like, well, that's so weird. And you just keep going through the store, going through the store. That doesn't even count for the seed oils we hadn't got to yet. That doesn't account for added ingredients like maltodextrin we hadn't got to yet. We started simply with the carbs. And keto wasn't even a word in our vernacular. And I was starting to look for low carb recipes, soups and such, because winter was coming. It was starting to, this all started in like May. And then as time went on with me getting set up to have the surgery, and the surgery happened in August. So by the time I was healed, we're into September. And September 2016 is when we officially started keto. But we were doing our low carb starting in like May, June, kind of fumbling around with that, not having any idea what to do. So, I mean, we were probably eating 150 to 200 grams of carbohydrates a day, which in hindsight is low carb to where we were. Because who knows what we were eating? We were eating whatever we wanted. We were eating pizza, like frozen pizzas every night, or going to Taco Bell because you could feed the whole family at the time for $20. Just run through, get a big bag of the dollar burritos, and bring them home. Because when you're working all the time and you're tired and you're 400 pounds, what's the easiest thing to do? Go through the drive-through, or even going to the grocery store. I would get those low feelings. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation before, where you at the checkout line at the grocery store, you're like, "Well, I'm feeling kinda low and kinda like, oh." So you pick up 2 candy bars because 'cause that'll fix it. And it does.
Mhm.
It alleviates it. But anyway, looking for the recipes, I kept coming across a website that was for epileptic children. It was a keto recipe website for kids that are, utilizing therapeutic ketone therapeutically to help with their epilepsy. And I'm like, "Well, what is that? That doesn't make any sense. That's weird. I'm not epileptic. That okay, just keep going." And then I was seeing my general practitioner at the time, and he was an old guy. He was like my grandma's general practitioner. That's the reason why I picked him up because I would take her and I'd see him too. And he was like, if you want to lose weight, you just got to get into ketosis. And I'm like, what's that? And he was like, you got to cut out the potatoes and all this. And we're like, well, we're eating cauliflower mash and all that stuff. And he didn't really elaborate any further than that. So I hear ketosis, I'm seeing ketosis here. So at the time, it was like huge with podcasts. I hadn't quite fallen into looking at YouTube like I do now. I watched YouTube content for certain things, but health wasn't one of them. And then I went to a podcast and I found two keto dudes. And I also found that Jimmy Moore who was a very prominent YouTuber and podcaster and such at the time, he had thousands of episodes. So it was kind of like a daunting task to try to jump in on that. So two keto dudes had maybe like 50 episodes. And I was like, okay, I started from the beginning and I listened like all day for like a couple of weeks just to get through it all. And we're like, okay, let's do this keto thing. So that's really how we got started. And we haven't really looked back. Um, it was a slow process for the wife. Took her about 6 months to get fully keto adapted because I'm guessing that she had a lot of hormonal imbalances and stuff going on that were fighting it and just really hit her hard. Like there were days where she's like, I don't think I can keep going. But she did for me. She knew the importance that it was for me because if she stopped, I would probably stop. And so she kept going. She's a trooper where most people would have given up, thrown in the towel. She stuck with it and found that light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't necessarily think I would recommend that for everybody because there's no guarantee you're going to find it. So, and not being a doctor or healthcare professional or anything like that, I would never recommend anything anyway. So,
So when you were at before you became keto, did your body hurt at that weight? Like, did you have a difficult time getting in and out of bed? Did you have any issues with your car? Did you ever fly? What was it like?
I had a lot of issues. So, I was taking heartburn medicine every day. I was taking allergy medicine every day, like a scary amount of allergy medicine because you're supposed to take like one Benadryl at a time, like twice a day, maybe. I was taking four at a time, 5 times a day. I was taking the heartburn medication, and then I was also taking ibuprofen because yeah, my joints hurt, my knees were bothering me, and it was just sore all the time. You'd be a big guy, and yeah, I would fly, and I would worry for like the whole week leading up to the flying that, oh, they're gonna kick me off the plane. They're gonna this seatbelt's not gonna buckle, and it just would be such a nerve wracking experience. And it wasn't until I finally got in the seat, strained and struggled, and then got that buckle to clip, and I'm sitting here like that. I would be like, okay, we're good. We're on the flight. I'm buckled. They're most likely not going to kick me off a flight. We can go on vacation. We can do what we're going to do. So yeah, and my car really wasn't much of an issue. Luckily, I didn't get to the point where like I could like the steering wheel was rubbing on me or I couldn't fit behind the car. I know that there are some folks out there that have had those issues, and luckily that wasn't something that I had come across. I imagine if we didn't intervene, it probably would have gotten to that point. So, yeah, I mean, they say that changing your lifestyle and eating right and exercising and doing the things you need to do is hard. Living life at over 400 pounds is hard too. It's a
Yeah.
different kind of hard. I mean, it's hard to find clothes. At the time, I like really the only place that I could shop that was affordable was Kmart, and they don't even exist anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. My highest was about 330, and I it was a lot of inflammation, and my stomach, like, overlapped all of my legs, and my legs it was just everything hurt. Okay, so you go keto, and does your sleep apnea heal? What happens? Does your body start feeling better?
It took a while. So the sleep, the sleep apnea, I just used the CPAP. I should probably still use it, but I don't. There were a lot of things that took place. So I was slowly able to get off the heartburn medication. Got to the point where I didn't need the allergy medicine. I wasn't taking ibuprofen every day. And there was a moment where I realized that I wasn't hungry all the time. And there was
Mhm,
also a moment because I had an office job. I was working insurance and I'd be sitting at a desk all day. And you know that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon feeling comes around, and you're like starting to get that low feeling. You're starting to get sleepy, drowsy. You need to put something in your face. And it's an office. So there's almost always something around. There's candy at people's desks. There's leftover whatever in the conference room. There's all these things. So you're always on the hunt. And it was just one day, it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was wide awake, bright eyed and bushy tailed, if you will. And I'm like, I was clear. And I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced this, but I felt like living life prior was kind of like walking through a swamp where you're just trying to get through and it's just so hard, and like whether it was work, trying to get your work done at work, or just getting through life, getting things done, doing laundry, bending over to get stuff out of the dryer, and it just hurts because your belly's overlapping itself, and everything's pushing up, and you're trying to reach. And I was like, I was on the verge of getting ready to build something to put the dryer and washer up on platforms, so it was easier for me to reach in,
mhm.
and all of these things, and they just kind of slowly started to fade away to where I felt like I was living in HD, like I took off some foggy glasses or something and I could just see and I felt good and my brain was clear. And whether I lose another pound or not, whether I never get thin, whether I never get in shape, that feeling alone is going to keep me at least 90% on track because I don't want to go back to feeling the way I used to feel.
Did you have food reactions at all?
I don't believe so. I did have a lot like, I mean, I had severe food addictions, and this helped me kind of understand that,
Mhm.
because I would eat basically every night until I probably was on the verge of, like, literally exploding, and then you would rest for a little bit, then you go get ice cream. So it's just a devastating thing to look back on and go, "I was doing this to me, and there wasn't a lot I could do about it." I wish there were, there's obviously, hindsight's 2020. There's a lot of things I wish I could go back and change. Start things sooner,
Mhm.
help people who are gone that could have totally used this information. And I just have to supplement that by doing this. I can't help the people that are gone, but I can hopefully help people that are still out there that are still feeling like I felt, because nobody should have to feel that way. It's terrifying. There's like a lost feeling. You're hopeless and you feel so helpless. Like there's nothing I can do outside of surgery or whatever the case is that was obviously on the table for us having surgery. And at the time, my wife was working on a unit. She's an RN, and she was working on a unit where she would see the complications come back from the weight loss surgeries. So you see on one end, the pros and everything, and on her end, she only saw the cons. She
Mhm.
saw the things that things that had come undone and all, or that needed to be redone, and all the surgeries. Because anytime you have surgery, it's a dangerous proposition. And so she was like, "Let's put this on the back burner. Let's try this low carb thing. And if it's not successful, we'll do weight loss surgery as the extreme last resort." Obviously, there was nothing like Ozempic yet or anything like that. And I think that's just about as scary to me as surgery. I mean, considering and understanding, because she's gone into great detail about what they do in the surgery, and it's scary. That's a lot of invasive stuff, and basically you're kind of forced to go keto afterwards anyway, and you know
Mhm.
about it.
Yes, I had gastric bypass, and if I could go back in time, I would have tried keto carnivore first, 100%, but I didn't know about it. Let me see here. I had my surgery in 2012, 2013.
something like that, and this wasn't quite the craze, and you have to go low carb anyway, so why not try that first? That's amazing that you were able to catch this first and that she was able to see those things. Because 'cause I've interviewed people, it's not just me who have had consequences. I've had people who've had to do revisions, who've been on PICC lines, who've had infections, who've had ulcers, who've had yeah. That's amazing that you guys got to come into this. What's really exciting about this interview is okay, so I'm almost 2 years into carnivore, which we can go into why I choose that instead of keto. But there's like this evolution that happens because when you come in, you're like, everything is perfect. This is perfect. I got this. Everything's perfect. But throughout time, you have to deal with things that you can kind of stuff away for a while. Like eating keto carnivore is so much more satiating that for a while, the food addiction seems like I figured it out. And then it can come back. Like you were talking about that getting stuffed. I've done that on carnivore, right? Ate until I went to sleep. I've even during carnivore woken up in the middle of the night hungry and eaten. So, how has that been for you? Have you had to work through that or did it never become an issue after going keto?
You're right. The whole idea that I can eat as much as I want, I can eat 3 pounds of steak if I want, I can eat a whole dozen eggs if I want, I can, whatever I want, has a psychological benefit at the time that removes the restrictions, I think, that perpetually cause people to fail and cause people to yo-yo diet when they're doing low carb or like low calorie, low fat type of diets where you're con- continually restricting the amount of food you can put into your body. And it seems also when you're putting in, no matter how much you put in, there's not enough there to keep you satiated. So understanding and finding satiety is paramount here. So getting to a point where you're not hungry all the time because when I started, I was doing 12-12 inadvertently. I mean, you got to figure you're sleeping 7, 6, 7, 8 hours a night. So that's automatically off the bat. You've got to, you get up in the morning, and especially if you're working early like I was, you'd get up early. You would do what you got to do, get ready, shower, shave, whatever, right? And then you're off on the races. You're driving for an hour to a job. You're already at 10 hours, 11 hours right there of fasting without even considering it. Just the daily everything of life. Even if you ate as you got into bed, you're still at 10, 11 hours of fasting. Then you get to work. You're not probably going to eat right away when you get to work. So I was doing about 12-12 at the time. I would pack a simple lunch. I mean, lunch meat, boiled eggs, bacon strips, cheese sticks, some pecans, maybe a little bit of butter, and dip the pecans in it. That's so good. But that was my lunch. I wasn't putting a lot of effort into it. I was trying to keep it as simple as I could to maintain because if I made it too complicated, I wasn't going to do it. So I would just throw stuff in a bag, chicken, turkey, whatever, and I was fine. And you quickly understand the satiety aspect. Also, when I started, the most popular thing to do as keto was the bulletproof coffee. And I think that was a huge catalyst to my success. I know it gets a lot of hate now. A lot of people make fun of it and, "Oh, how could you drink the butter and the coconut oil?" I honestly, in hindsight, think it was a huge help to me because I didn't know what I was doing with it. I would drink, you know, I'd have a coffee this big and I would put a half a stick of butter in there. People are gonna go, have a stick of butter and about 6 to 8 tablespoons of refined coconut oil in there. So I did the math. It was about 165 grams of fat in just my coffee and 1,100 grams of 1,100 calories just my coffee in the morning. And I wouldn't start drinking that till I got to work. I would take it with me in the car. I'd make it every morning, set the timer on, the coffee maker, get up, make it. I went through like 6 stick blenders because I kept buying the plastic ones like a dum dum, and they just break when you put them in hot coffee. So that was a huge catalyst for me, I believe, and I know, like I said, I know that it gets a lot of hate. A lot of people go, "Oh, how?" I think with that helped me understand satiety, all that fat, especially as big as I was too, because I'm 6 foot. I was 6 foot whatever, and then 400 plus pounds. So I was big and I needed all the advantages I could have. So I think I really look back. I don't drink that anymore. I just put some heavy cream in my coffee now, but I look back on that fondly. I mean, it tasted good at the time too. Like I was really surprised that butter and coconut oil tasted good in my coffee.
So was so you started out 12-12. Did you end up doing kind of a keto continuum? Like, were you ever a ketone chaser? Did you ever do longer fasts?
In the beginning, we used the strips, but back then nobody told you that the strips only pick up acetoacetate. So the strips pick up acetate. For anybody who doesn't know, the strips, you buy them at the store like $7, a little 50 of them, and you go potty on them, and they only pick up acetoacetate. So as soon as you start doing keto or living a low carb lifestyle, your body starts producing acetoacetate, and then once you get fully keto adapted, your body then starts producing the beta hydroxybutyrate and is no longer really pushing out the acetoacetate. So then the strips stop working. But nobody tells anybody that, and they get frustrated because they go, the strips aren't showing me anything anymore. Well, it means you're probably in a good spot then. I didn't get a ketone reader until maybe 5 years ago, and we've been doing this 8. So I never really chased ketones in the beginning, and even still, I only got it really for the novelty. And I typically only test now if I'm doing an extended fast, 7, 14, 21 days, whatever. That's the only
What?
time I'll
Did you
test.
just say 14 days?
Yeah, I've done up to 21.
Wow. And what kind of benefits do you get from that?
I like the idea of like kind of, so I typically do it. Okay, so let me start with 7 days. So a 7 day fast, I try to do one of those at least kind of towards the beginning of the year. So like, like a day or two after New Year's. And then I try to do one sometimes after my birthday in June. And then that's usually two a year. And I've done 14 days kind of to see if I could do it. And 21 was kind of one of those. I was a goal, like just a bucket list thing. I don't know really why. I mean, it didn't really serve much of a purpose for me, I don't think. It actually like was hard because when I was doing the 21 days, we were also getting new floors installed in our house. So I'm fasting for the entire time we're having this done, and we're having to move everything in our house like 3 times. So lifting and
Yeah.
carrying, moving things from the garage, moving things upstairs, downstairs, downstairs, upstairs. And I was like sitting down all the time. I didn't have the energy to do that. And, the wife's getting frustrated, but she understood what I was trying to do. But yeah, that was kind of just a kind of a vanity thing for me, just to say I can do 21 days. I don't think I had any negative impacts on me, but it was definitely interesting. I think somewhere between, for the average person, 7 days once or twice a year is probably adequate. And I think that's a good reset. Like, so you're kind of coming in a new year, and there's the autophagy benefits. There's kind of like, you're going to for real get yourself cleaned out. It's not a juice cleanse. And, but I'll tell you, like when I do like the 7 to 14 days, 14 days is probably the max that I would ever do again. After I got done with 21 days, I was like, I'm never doing this unless there's some actual reason to, or some kind of like challenge for a good cause, something like that. But then I would be going into it even more prepared. I know more now. That was 4 years ago. Like the first couple of like the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of my videos on YouTube really were all about that. And they were terrible. They're hardly insightful, don't really give you any information. So, you know, but I think I feel lighter, and I don't mean like weight. I just mean like you just feel light, you feel good, open. I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's almost, there's a lot of people that say that like, that there's a spiritual aspect to fasting long term like that. And I can kind of see where that comes from. You just have that feeling like you're kind of crispy, like you're clear, even more so than normal. And you can go to bed at night and you're not, and I don't really get all that hungry, but I do find myself watching like Triple D and stuff on TV, like diners, drive-ins, and dives and stuff, and watching them go to all these restaurants. So there's a weird aspect to it, but
How about movement? Do you do any movement?
I need to do more. I'm actually pretty sedentary right now. I need to go. I had a gym membership, but then like the gym I wanted to go to, and this is all excuse, but it's all like here, and it was because they had. I was paying for this gym, and it was there was a sauna, a steam room, there was a hot tub, a pool, basketball court, red light therapy, all these things,
Oh,
but it was packed every day. It didn't matter. One of the
no.
first times I ever went was a Sunday at like 7 a.m. And it snowed the night before unexpectedly, and it was still packed. Snow on the ground,
Mhm.
people still there. I'm like, this is crazy. You just go in and it's people. And I was like, because I was used to like doing like Planet Fitness, where there's sometimes a lot of people, but not always a lot of people. And I don't feel confident enough in myself working out and using machines to do it in front of a lot of people. And it's silly to feel that way, but that's just what
No,
happens.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. I hate it when the gym is full. I'm a stay-at-home mom and the kids club is open in the morning, so I go and I'm with all the old people, so all the retired people. It's a great time. Go in the morning, like
I
9.
do almost yeah, I do almost everything in the morning. So, like, I'll
Good.
go to Walmart in the morning, Costco in the morning. I'm like, just me and the other grandparents.
Yeah. I'm sure you could give me lots of tips, but my movement thing, the other thing I do is walk outside. The indoor air is just ugh, to me, especially gym indoor air. So, like, I'll just say, okay, I need something from Walmart. So, my baby and I will walk to Walmart and back, and then I have a destination. And yeah, I love movement. But, I don't know. You can tell us if you want to. For me, this eating meat and this clean eating hasn't I wanted it to be about weight loss, and I've definitely lost inflammation, but this diet doesn't help me lose weight. If I stop tracking, if I stop fasting, if I start adding foods back, if I stop moving 12 miles a day, I gain all my weight back. So for me, this diet is about healing, nourishing, being satiated, and that kind of stuff. How about you?
I believe it's the same for me. I think just because you can tell a difference.
Mhm.
Even if I have a little extra than I should, or and I don't mean by like having another pound of meat or whatever. I mean if I eat something that's not so great for me, like today, I'm probably going to make some broccoli cheddar soup. It's getting cold, and I've had some like right before KPL. I had some broccoli cheddar soup, and it's one of my favorites. And I make it really simple, and it's pretty clean. So, and then I also will make some chicken thighs and stuff too. But when I'm eating clean and I'm eating primarily burger, eggs, some bacon from time to time, because we'll go through cycles where we don't eat bacon for a couple of months, and then I'll go through and eat like 10 pounds in 2 weeks or something crazy. And then, well, I guess it's not that crazy, but I just feel better. I
Yeah.
feel just, well, okay, I don't feel anything as opposed to when you don't feel good and you feel everything. I guess that's a better way to like, how do you feel today? I don't feel anything. And not in the proverbial like I'm zombied out, but to where like, my knuckles aren't bothering me today. Like I can tell sometimes they're like, your knuckles will start bothering you. And it's just kind of like
Mhm.
they feel like they want to be popped, but you don't know why. You're just kind of playing with your knuckles. And then, your elbow will bother you or something, or you know, my back will bother me from time to time, and I'm like, ugh, just things like that. And when I'm doing better, that doesn't happen. I can tell, like like a day to day, like how well I've done with food based on how my hands feel, which is
Mhm.
crazy because really before I didn't have that issue, and now I do. It's like we become more in tune now because we were talking in a live that I had this morning, and some people were sharing some frustrations that they've tried, PSMF, they've tried, fasting and all these different things, and they're not really seeing the progress that they'd like to see on the scale. And I was like, sometimes it does feel very frustrating. You're doing everything in your power to better yourself, and it feels like you're just kind of treading water sometimes. And it feels like it would just be simpler if you didn't know about all of this and you weren't always solving one problem to kind of find the next one to where, if you figure out that seed oils bother you, then you're on to, well, oh, now there's maltodextrin to worry about, and then now there's propylene glycol to worry about, or oh, now there's hidden, whatever in the food. And then you realize, oh, natural flavors aren't really that natural. There's like 100 things that can be in there, and a
Mhm.
lot of them aren't legal in other countries. It's just
Yes.
it seems like the cycle, like, of self-betterment is a never-ending hallway, and it can get very frustrating, and I think it's try not to be a negative Nancy about it, at least I don't try to, but sometimes you just have to acknowledge that it's tough because it's like, and I'm sure that you can account for this. You've started with, you started with, you lost all the weight with The Biggest Loser to gain it back. I've been paying attention to your story, and then go and then to get to where you were, then to get to a point where you had gastric bypass, and then coming into keto, and then going stricter carnivore to find, to start digging in. There's almost always something new to find, and it
Mhm.
does get very frustrating for the average person, and that's why and I talk about this too. I kind of wonder, how do we bring the the biggest amount of people, starting with just the United States, you know, 400, 350,000, 350,000 people. How do we bring them into a better lifestyle when it's just going to be something that it's a never-ending battle for them, and they're just going to maybe give up? I mean, we still have to try, but I don't know, like, how do we sell that to them
Yeah. Yeah. How do we make this sustainable for the
and
masses?
palatable for the masses?
Yeah.
Because eventually, yeah, eventually eventually a good amount will find their way. Maybe it's carnivore, keto. I don't even care if it's keto or even vegan. I don't care as long as you're trying to do something better for yourself. I mean, we can't count them out too. They're trying too. They just think they have the best information, and maybe it is for them. I don't know. I'm not a professional here. Um, so I so that weighs on my brain a lot too. So I kind of wonder, like, how do we actually make this possible? And I know we're at the very beginning, we're at the very tip of the iceberg, but we're here, we're sharing our stories, and we're hopefully helping others that'll watch this video, and they'll resonate. Some of the things that you or I will say will resonate with them, and it'll keep them going. So I don't know that
I'm
we get bleak, but
I'm all about like self-empowerment, but I think at this point I would celebrate the day that two things happen. Seed oils are banned as well as glyphosate and the pesticides. Those two things would relieve a lot of the toxin exposure that we're dealing with and the inflammation that's causing this, because I consistently look back and I watched your video today on cheat meals. I thought this was so good. And when I started carnivore, I had a very different opinion than I do today. But if you look back at what any time before the 1960, 1950, they had ice cream, they had candy, they still had potatoes at like every meal. Why weren't they all obese like us? Why weren't they all struggling? I feel like our generation is working harder than any generation in history has ever had to work, and it's not supposed to be like this.
I
And so
agree.
if we just take that layer off of people of like, it's not you. Like you can make better choices and you can try and we can work together on this, but it's not just a human problem. It's not just a self-will problem. I love somebody had said if we had a classroom and one person was failing, we would say that person needs to work on paying attention in class and studying. But if the whole class is failing, there's a problem with the teacher. So I feel like that's where we're at.
I think that's the same. I think that's a good point to make. Where less than 100 years ago, we didn't have these issues, and less than 100 years ago, we were smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a
Yeah.
day, and we were drinking booze like all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
we might still be doing that, but I don't really drink anymore. But also, you didn't have 10 cases of soda in your garage, and
Mm.
you didn't have like the Dunkin' Donuts coffee in the morning that had 192 grams of sugar in it.
Sure. Yeah. And your french fries were cooked in tallow until what? 2002?
Somewhere
It
in the
wasn't
90s.
that long ago that McDonald's cooked their french fries in tallow and now they cook it in 12 different seed oils.
Yeah. They had a lot of pressure, and they actually had they had a thing where some of the oils they started off with at first to replace the tallow was accumulating on, like, any fabric inside the store and would just randomly catch on fire. So, And I mean, and there's still a couple of there is a website out, like an app, I think it's called Seed Out or something like that, where you can go. It's an app on your phone where it'll show you restaurants that don't cook in seed oil. It doesn't necessarily
Seed
point you
oil
to.
scout.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay. I know there's
Sorry to
something
interrupt
like
you.
yeah, I know that there's an app. I just couldn't remember what it was called. It doesn't necessarily point you to keto, low carb, carnivore restaurants, but it's a start. The understanding that seed oils. It's the funny thing is, are you familiar with a peel?
Yes. So this is where it's like, this is impossible.
Well, the marketing materials, there's a marketing video that comes along with Appeal, and it says the quiet part out loud, where it talks about how, well, if, Appeal is safe. It doesn't have any seed oils in it. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so they know. They know. And there's a lot of people out there that, even people that are influencers in our sphere, people that we're familiar with who will still argue that seed oils aren't as big of an issue as we let on. And I'm not one to name names, so I won't. But they get very emotional and upset about this. And I'm thinking, I understand there may not be a paper on it, there may not, or there might be some paper that says it is, but then, did the seed oil company have anything to do with that paper? And the only reason it got published is because it had semi-favorable results. How many papers were done prior to that that got shelved that will never see the light of day that told a different story?
Mhm.
And these are questions I think that we need to ask. I think even with headlines or even with even with like the stuff with Element, like I that still doesn't. I mean, it's unfortunate with the maltodextrin and all that stuff, but even with that, like the sky isn't falling, and I think we need to take a step. Like even with that video, I said, I'm not telling you to not to use Element, and I have no skin in the game with them outside of I have some of my kitchen.
Me too.
But I mean, I don't make any money from them or anything like that. I'm not sponsored or have been affiliated with them whatsoever outside of getting free little packets or whatever. But I just think that there's such a big thing, like focusing on seed oils. You mentioned glyphosates and, you know, the microplastics that's in everything, which is a terrifying thing to think about.
Mhm.
And at first I thought it was kind of silly as like microplastics. That's another thing to worry about. It's
Even
like how much of a credit card you're gonna eat, a year and
your receipts,
the receipts
they're all covered in, chemicals.
that oh, I
Mhm.
mean, we drive on roads that are chemicals. I mean, just think about the brake dust and the air from all the automobiles. That's just as I mean, that
It's everywhere.
it's like there's
It
parts of
doesn't
New
mean we
Jersey.
can't do our
Right.
best, but we also
Yes.
just have to live the best we can, which is why I would love to talk to you a little bit about the food addiction and the cutting down on foods, and I wanna tell you where I'm coming from here. So, I had gastric bypass 11, 12 years ago. Maybe it's 13 years now. I don't know, a while ago. So, then I started getting hypoglycemia. So that forced me to start looking at, like, all of the carbs in my life. So, for years, I've been cutting out more and more and more, trying to get rid of this hypoglycemia because of our restrictive mindset in our lives that have always been there. I've been overweight my whole life. So, since I was a very young child, maybe even 3, I was told I needed to restrict my food because I was a bad eater because I'm overweight. This restrictive mindset. So, I'm just going to admit right now, as I look back at my last year and a half, almost 2 years of carnivore, that I continued that mindset of if I just keep cutting, I'm going to find my way to a healthy weight and healing. And I cut and I cut and I cut and I went all the way down to lion diet. And do you know what happened?
It was awful, wasn't it?
Well, at first I was like, I figured this out. If all I do is eat beef for the rest of my life, I won't be a food addict and I will finally become skinny and healed. And about 35 days in, I gained 14 pounds of inflammation in a matter of a few days. My hormones tanked and my thyroid tanked. Now, some people in the carnivore space would say, you just didn't carnivore long enough. Like somebody actually told me that what I should have done was continued that for 9 to 12 months. Then I would finally be skinny. I'd be healed of my food addiction, and I would also have healed all my hormones and my thyroid. I'm pretty sure when you get inflamed like that, that's your body saying, what are you doing? So, since that event, I've had to look and say, okay, I think I'm going to have to look my food addiction in the eye a little bit harder. I can't restrict my way out of food addiction. And I don't think I can restrict my way to a healthy weight. And I don't think I can restrict my way into healing. With a caveat, I don't need to add processed foods back. But that just leads me to this spectrum we're on, where I love this video you just had. If everybody hasn't checked out Dustin's channel on YouTube, it's fantastic. And he just went into the carnivore and the keto and the spectrum and all working together. And I think we all have to eat the way that's going to be best for us. So some people, that's way more vegetables, maybe even way more recipes. I just had a friend on who talked about how net carbs worked for her. For some people, net carbs doesn't work. I choose to eat carnivore not because I think that plants are trying to kill me, but because every time I eat them, I get sick. So I'm hoping to heal and get to add them. I'd love for you to weigh in on that, as well as your thoughts on cheat meals, because now I'm thinking a little differently. So go ahead.
Well, let me start with cheat meals because I think the word cheat is kind of a hard word to wrap your head around when it comes to food because I mean,
It
food
makes
isn't our
food evil or
it
negative.
yeah, I mean, food isn't our identity, and I mean, it happens, especially, on, like, an on-camera persona. Our food is our identity, our keto, our carnivore. We're Carnivore Christy or Carnivore Sam or Lion Diet Billy or whatever, right?
Carnivore biggest loser.
Yes, and, keto simple, right? I mean, it's just one of those things that just sort of becomes a persona that we have, but it doesn't encompass us, it doesn't truly showcase who we are, and we're complicated creatures, right? So even if we're looking at historical information, most of the time we probably at some point in the game we probably weren't eating every day. And we probably were trying to always be on the move to find food. So we're hunters, we're gatherers, we're trying to find the buffalo, the elk, we're trying to find, whatever. We're trying to hunt those things and along the way we're going to find naturally occurring fruits, veggies, nuts, whatever we can find to satiate us till we can find what we need to find, meat, obviously. And there's always that old joke is you never see cave paintings of broccoli. So, they weren't painting pictures of strawberries and stuff, right? So, but I think those are integral at certain times of the year. And if
Mhm.
we that, think about what fruit is made of. Fruit is fructose and glucose, and fructose is processed directly by the liver into fat. So if you come across a big bushes and bushes or trees of fruit, and winter is coming, and you're going to eat until you can't eat anymore, you're going to gain some weight that's going to help you make it through the winter where you have no food. So I think we're kind of a victim in this of our own ingenuity because we figured out how to crop, we figured out how to feed ourselves sustainably, and we have figured out how to have grocery stores stocked full of anything and everything 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think we're kind of a true victim to that. And that's very recent still, even. I mean, even if you're looking within the last 500 years, that's a millisecond in human history. So we haven't caught up with all of that yet. So I still think about like, hunter gatherers are looking forward to the fall when the fruit would be available. They're looking forward to the berries. They're looking forward to, my great grandmother would tell me stories of they would take snow and just put maple syrup on it. And, they ate candy, but they would get like candy at how, or they would get apples and oranges for Christmas
Yeah, and peanuts.
and peanuts and things like that. And I think I want to say that along the lines, my great grandparents, sometime before they moved to Indiana, owned a store of some sort, like kind of like before, because grocery stores weren't a thing, at least as we know them now. But there were smaller stores in and around neighborhoods and all that stuff. But because they're from Kentucky, so I just think like the idea of cheat days for me is you're giving yourself something to look forward to, and I think there's also something to be said too, like and I mentioned in that video where, on Fridays, I take my granddaughter, most Fridays we go to Culver's. She gets some French fries, the little kid big cup of ice cream. She never even eats the entirety of the ice cream. And I mean, she barely, we have to struggle to get her to eat anything. She would rather do anything than eat. Color, play, Play Doh, paint, doesn't matter. She'd rather do that than eat. So getting her to eat is always a struggle until she gets hungry, then she's voracious. But we take her out and she feeds me the french fries she doesn't want. Now I can be, super strict and go, "Nope, I'm not gonna eat those." But she's 6. How long are we gonna how much time in the grand scheme of things are we gonna be going to Culver's every Friday? I mean, how many more years is that gonna be a thing? Is that g and I think, like, that, like, or going to the fair. We take her to the fair once a year. We take her to the apple orchard pumpkin patch. We go to the apple
Mhm.
orchard, I may have an apple or 2. We go to the fair, I like corn dogs. There's things like that, like, on birthdays, we go out to dinner, sometimes we may get sushi, whatever. And I think realistically, and I know that I've had a lot of pushback on this from certain groups and such, or just individuals as well, where if you think about the average person in our community eats 2 meals a day. Some will eat 3, some will eat 1. So average of 2 meals a day. So that's, say, 700 meals a year. Just simple math. 700 meals a year. You go and you do something with your family and have, say you have 20 cheat meals in a year. That's still 680 meals on plan. Now people are like, "Well, that's said it," and if you are a person who has to live as an abstainer, I celebrate you. If you're a person that 50-50 works for you, cool. We have to figure this out for ourselves, because what's the
Mhm.
most important thing to me in my journey is figuring out what works best for me. How do I stay the most consistent? How do I keep myself from going off the rails? I know myself from being a former food addict that if I completely shut myself off from any of the things that I like,
Mhm.
be it regular pizza or corn dogs at the fair, whatever, eventually I'm gonna break and eat. And who knows what it'll turn into.
Yeah.
And I've gone a year without any cheats. I've gone, I did a carnivore thing, and I think it was almost a year I went, and then we ended up going, like, on a little vacation, and I tried to get some stuffed carnivore where we were, and it was a little more difficult, or keto or whatever, just have meat. I was trying to do, like, a carnivore challenge, and it was a little more difficult, and I ended up, like, giving in and having, like, pancakes one day. And I wasn't even
Mhm.
drinking soda, I wasn't having caffeine, and I had driven from, like, Indy to Atlanta, and then from Atlanta to South Carolina with no caffeine. Yeah, so, I mean, I think you have to give yourself some grace. Now, if you're a person that a cheat day just will send you spiraling, then you have to understand how lucky you are to have that information, to
Mhm.
understand that.
Yeah. I tried the abstaining for the whole first year and I was like, "I got this." Like, this is the ticket because I got sober when my kids were born. My daughter's almost 12, so it's almost 12 years of sobriety. I mean, I was sober during her pregnancy, but after breastfeeding, I went out for a few weeks. It was so ugly that I was like, "I quit. We're not gonna have this near my kids." So, we're going on almost 12 years of sobriety, and, I thought, "Well, if I could just abstain from certain foods just like I do with alcohol, that must be the ticket." And what would keep happening, and same with dairy, what would keep happening is I would go on vacation, and I would smell the coffee, and I would want the coffee, and coffee just isn't good without cream and sweetener. It's just disgusting in my opinion. So every vacation, I would have this coffee, I would come back, and I would spiral. Now, spiraling for me, because I can't have carbs or I get sick, is a little different than spiraling for other people, but the mental spiral. Who cares what your spiral is? It's in here.
Mhm.
So then the cracks started happening when went on a cruise last year with the 2 crazy ketos, and it was the first time that I really felt sad. I really felt sad about this abstinence. Before that, it was like, "This is it." But then I was like, I am so tired of being that person, and I don't wanna go on this cruise and watch everybody else enjoy themselves and maybe, like, give me the dry hamburger, please. That was the first crack. So then the next crack was when I went lion diet and I gained that all that weight, and then it was like, what I'm doing is not working. So now I kind of feel like an observer. Like before I was like, I'm in this, I know all the answers, this is gonna work, chugga, 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 choo, 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 let's go. And now I kind of feel like I'm up in the air observing, just letting some things happen. So what I've done is I've decided I get to have coffee with Splenda in it. And I haven't spiraled since saying, "I'm not gonna be restrictive. I get to have coffee with Splenda every day if I want, 6 times a day if I want," which I wouldn't, but I don't know. So it's been a lot healthier. I know we all just have to evolve and figure out our thing, but that's I'm just throwing out there that I'm with you on this one. We all have to just figure it out, like what works for us.
And
Full
what works for me
abstinence hasn't
this
worked.
year may not work next year.
Yes. Yes.
And how I feel about something now doesn't mean I'm gonna feel like how I ketoed in the beginning isn't how I keto now, or, carnivore, keto, ketovore, whatever the terminology
Whatever.
you wanna use, right? So,
Yeah.
I don't drink the bulletproof coffee anymore. It was
Mhm.
successful for me until I didn't need it anymore. That was maybe a year and a half, 2 years every single day, and
Mhm.
it was a huge benefit to me, but I don't need that anymore. Sometimes I think about, well, maybe if I went back to having that much fat in a coffee day, then it might kickstart me again. And I'm like, the cost of everything is so much different now. Because I was getting like a gallon of coconut oil for like 17 bucks. I think it's $60 now. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things.
Yes.
So I'm like, I'll add, I will get the 70. I think you were talking about this yesterday in your live with Carnival Grandma, I think, about the 73-27 or whatever it is, meat,
Yeah.
80-20 meat.
Yum.
Yeah. And then I'll just pour the fat back on the burgers.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, and it's delicious. Um, you know, and I mean for me, like that super lean meat, I have a bunch of frozen like pound bricks in my freezer. Because whenever I find a good deal, I will buy a bunch, but I've got a bunch of grass-fed ground beef in the freezer, and I pull it out every once in a while. It's not my favorite. It's not bad, but I've got like 20 some pounds in there,
Mhm.
and the wife won't eat it. I bought 55 pounds of it at Kroger one day because they had mismarked it, I think, because initially it was like $8 a pound, and I got it for $1.99 a pound. So I bought 55 pounds of it, and it's in my freezer.
Did you go talk to these people at, did you go talk to them at Ketopalooza?
I'm not familiar with who is I the only vendors I talked to obviously with Salty and Keto Chow because I'm affiliated with them. So obviously any chance I get to be in the room with Lynette and Chris and Miriam, I'm gonna talk to them. And then I did talk to the Scrummy Sweets. I mean, she played right into me. She said she watched my video. So obviously I was like, oh hi. And
I love
and
Susie.
and then I did kind of not really got cornered by, like, the breathing ketone guy, but he
I
stopped me,
didn't
was
even go
talking
over
to
there.
me about it, and, because we were inside, like, the conference not the con we were outside of the it was Sunday, I think, like, right around the end of breakfast time, and he was talking to me about it, and I was like, "Okay, it's interesting," but I was like, "I don't care enough about my ketones to check and not to spend 250 bucks," and that was a special price for KPL. $250 for it. And I was like, I don't have enough money for that. Like, if I have money, I mean, I've got my little thing back here somewhere. I've got a keto coach. They're not even keto coach anymore. They're bio coach now, which is Goody Beats. And if you've never get a chance to talk to Logan Delgado, you should get him on and talk to him. He's great.
Ooh, let me write that down.
His
What I
Goody
love
Beats,
Logan Delgado, just like my
mhm,
Delgado.
I guess. Yeah, he was one of the first YouTubers that I found. And strangely enough, I found, Keto Couch Potatoes, which is Adam, and it was at the time, his wife. They've obviously since separated, but, ended up he was my roommate 2 years in a row at KPL.
Oh,
And that was, I
well,
mean, that's like 2016, 2017 I found them. And then I found 2 crazy ketos when they had like 1,400 subscribers.
really?
Yeah.
I love Joe and Rachel. I love, love, love them. So, what I was hoping to get out of this conversation isn't one more thing I want to ask you about, but just to bring people in. You do not have to be perfect, and you do not have to do things the way Adrian does them, and you don't have to do them the way Dustin does them. You need to come in and just give it a try. You also don't have to worry about everything under the sky. Just add some meat to your life. Please add meat. And then things will just come as you join community and you start maybe watching a few podcasts. You'll learn a thing here or there, and you just keep eating some more meat, and what's perfect for you is not perfect for me or Dustin. Just do your thing and just nourish yourself. Another thing I wish people would realize is this starvation thing we have going on. We really deserve to be full and nourished, right?
I think it's a relatively new thing in human history to have the abundance to be able to be full and nourished every day, and I don't know why I don't know. That's what I was thinking. I don't even know if our body knows what to do with it.
So a great thing about you is I hear this all the time as I turn on like TikTok and they say keto and carnivore, that's not sustainable. Well, maybe perfection isn't sustainable, but clearly Dustin's been doing this for 8 years. It is absolutely sustainable to eat more meat, right? And would you have any tips for people on this or any words of wisdom?
To find sustainability, you have to find consistency, and you have to figure out what consistency looks like for you. So, my words would be don't strive for 100%. You're never going to find 100% consistency. You're never going to be perfect. None of us are perfect. And we're going to find things that work at some points and then they stop working. So, you got to be flexible and you have to be able to try to
Mhm.
pivot. Whether you're a full carnivore lion diet and then that doesn't work, and then you have to eat some broccoli or whatever, right? Or you add in some bacon or you add in eggs or whatever, some cheese. Play with it. It's food. It's all delicious. And by that stay away from processed foods. Focus on the best quality whole foods that you can afford. Now, if you can
Yes.
only afford this is one thing that Dr. Barry will say that I completely agree. If you can only afford hot dogs and bologna,
Mhm.
or try to find burger on sale. I eat a lot of frozen burger patties because they're easy and
Mhm.
they're cheap. Just find your sustainability, find your satiety. We're not all food addicts. We're not all I mean, some people just kind of get here and then one thing I wanted to touch on is I think one of the things, and we talked about this towards the end of our first, like our real conversation at KPL, we were talking about fat and the fat on our bodies. And fat on our bodies is not there. Fat on our bodies isn't what's necessarily causing our issues.
Mm.
There's underlying issues that haven't been resolved that is causing the fat to be on our bodies. They're
In excess.
in excess. I mean, you figure the average human probably should have maybe upwards of 10 to 20% body fat. I don't know exactly, but I know it's not like keto savage and getting down to 4%. That's not good. And
No.
or getting up to where I am like 100% body fat. you know, and and I mean that sounds crazy, but somewhere in there, there's going to be a happy spot where your body wants to be, and if your body is pulling in and holding on to this fat and not letting go, you have to find out why, because that's not
Mhm.
normal.
Yep. Maybe it's hormones, maybe it's insulin, maybe it's thyroid, maybe it's a toxicity. Like for me, I'm digging into that mold thing.
Well, that's terrifying because I worry about our house having mold. Like
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said
another
that. That's
thing
a
to
swear word
worry
in
about.
our house. It's like Voldemort.
Oh,
But there's something going on that's causing you some metabolic issues. It's not there's I know a gal, she swears she eats 7,000 calories a day and she's like 7% body fat. And she swears she eats that. So I don't care what you're eating. If you're storing excess fat, there's something metabolically maybe off for some reason. And just simply restricting isn't necessarily going to fix that. You really
'cause
have
we
to
all
get
know
into why.
Yeah, we all know people. I mean, even Rachel talks about how long she went on eating 500 calories a diet a day,
Mhm.
and she didn't lose any weight because
Mhm.
that doesn't get to the root cause of why your body's holding on to that weight. That just terrifies your body and puts it into panic mode to where it's not going to let go of it. It's going to
I've
burn
been
into
in
yeah.
multiple times in my life. Yeah, but there is healing that can happen. And there's not I honestly think you're gonna have a harder time healing if you're eating those processed foods. If you're abundantly eating seed oils and processed foods, you're gonna have a harder time healing if ever, because you're kind of magnifying what's going on. So if you could eat more whole foods and then continue to work on the problem solving. What I hate is that it just seems to take forever. But I've been overweight my whole life. I'm 40, so I've got a good 40 years of disease, not disease, that's not the right word. Illness, offness, metabolic issues. So it's probably going to take more than 2 years to fix it.
Yeah, for
For
everybody.
the
And that's the thing is you
majority.
have to have patience because you didn't gain all the weight in the same day. You're not going to lose it in the same day. And And you're going to see those success stories from people in these groups where they've lost 100 pounds in 6 months. That's
Yes.
not realistic for most people, and you can
Mhm.
congratulate them, and you can be their cheerleaders and get your pom-poms out, but
Mhm.
you have to be realistic and understand that that is the way that them, but you can't judge yourself with them. It's just like anything in life. You can't judge somebody who has a better car than you, or you can't judge somebody who has a bigger house than you based solely on them having a bigger house than you. You can't
Mhm.
judge someone because they lost 100 pounds in 6 months, or yeah, "I lost 100 pounds in 3 months doing the lion diet." Well, cool.
And then my hair fell out
Oh, then I had to go and spend a bunch of money on collagen peptides and add all this
and
stuff
skin
back
removal
because
surgery.
that's terrifying to me. I'm so afraid of that, and I mean, I'm not so that's one reason I'm totally okay with losing weight very slowly, like, over the course
Mhm.
of a decade, because the and fasting and being diligent with it, because I don't want, like, I would rather be fat than have the weight loss surgery. I mean, it looks so awful, and that's one of the things of I've seen so many people, like, on Instagram go through it, and I every time I'm just like, "You know what? I'll just look like a sad raisin without my shirt on. It's okay." I mean, and I'm not gonna be anybody's supermodel. I'm just put a shirt on and look okay. I'm okay. It's kinda like, if you're familiar, I can't think of what his actual name is, but there's a YouTube guy, been around for a long time, Obese to Beast. Like, I mean, he lost a whole bunch of weight, and he was even on, Ellen years ago, and, like, she, like, offered to pay for his weight loss, or not his weight loss surgery, but his skin removal. She offered to pay for it, and she gave him a Mustang.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and I mean, I still follow him, and he still has all of his loose skin.
Yeah. Because of so I was 330 and then I started running half marathons and restricting 1,200 calories and I lost 100 pounds and then I had gastric bypass and then it's been up, down, up, down, up, down for so it's been up, down, up, down, up, down for my whole life. But I think because of this end being a lot slower, my skin is okay-ish? I don't know, but what's concerning is even people who've had surgery, all the muscle that they lose too. The surgery and some people who are doing, high doses of those peptides, they're losing a lot of muscle, and so I'd prefer not to. I would when I'm to wherever I think my goal is, which I have no idea what that even means, I hope that I look, like, really, really strong but I don't know, I haven't watched all of your videos, but I'm sure you touch on the fact that we can be happy today despite not being whatever we think our perfect body would look like.
I don't know if I have. I've got, like, 700 videos.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a good topic for a video, and it's one that I could even visit. Even because, I mean, you can always make a second video. People probably won't notice, but it's a definite way to look at it. I mean, you need to be happy today. That's what I try. When you're dealing with, the I only like, and I think Rachel touched on this in her talk at KPL. I only lost 1 pound. I
Mhm. Mhm.
only lost a half a pound at the end of the day or end of the week, or I only.
Mhm.
Congratulations, you're
Yeah.
still doing it. You're here. You woke up this morning, and,
Mhm.
that's the thing, just like, 'cause that was kind of the another topic today of my Sunday morning live was, secrets to happiness, and I was talking about my son yesterday because I was driving him to work because his car died, and he has to go looking for a new car, and the prospects are all expensive, and he's worried he's not gonna be able to afford it, and he's been really down about it and sad, and I'm like, well, life throws that at you, whether it's a new car or election season or a war and across the globe. There's always something coming at us to hit us in the face, to make us upset, to make us lose sight of what's important to us individually. Now, we have to still pay attention to the world at large too, but taking a moment, like we were driving down the interstate and we were passing all these trees that were red and orange and gorgeous. And I'm like, that's happiness. Seeing this and saying, that's awesome. I'm glad I get to see this. It's only, a few short weeks out of an entire year that you get to see that those colors, and then everything goes away, and then you're just looking at bare trees for 3, 4 months. And or, like in the morning, like, you have 4 kids. How often do you have an empty house where you can sit and have a cup of coffee in the morning and have the sun come up? That is probably
Never.
some of the that's probably
That
if you could
sounds
have
amazing.
that, that sounds like that sounds like happiness incarnate, right? Just like,
Mhm.
"Oh, yeah." We have, we're empty nesters, so nobody's here, and I still enjoy those moments in the morning where nobody's here. The house is quiet, except for the cats being dumb. But that's
Yeah.
the thing is, like, the secret to happiness is understanding that who I am today is going to make me better tomorrow. Even if I'm not happy where I am today, the things I'm doing today are gonna make tomorrow better.
Mhm, yeah. Can I tell you something?
Sure.
I deal with inflammation and I can gain like a literal 10 to 15 pounds overnight. And that makes me really sad sometimes and it can ruin my vacations. So prior to Keto Palooza, a friend told me, why don't you just buy a bigger size clothes? So I did. And then I felt comfortable in my clothes, and that made my trip so much better because I felt beautiful despite the bloat. And I felt like the bigger size clothes looked better on me anyway. And I felt beautiful. So who cares what size they are?
That is something that I think about sometimes where when you are wearing clothes, like, especially when you are going through a phase where you're just kinda going up and up and up, and you get to the point where your clothes just don't fit and you're still stuffing yourself in them, and you're like and you feel constricted. I mean, there's that good level of kind of snug where it feels like where you feel good about it, but that's a very small window because you obviously don't want your clothes too baggy, you don't want them too where you feel like, you know, like when you put a shirt on and not to sound crass or whatever, you feel like a fatso just putting it on. Like I have some shirts that I'll put on and like they've kind of shrunk over time and they just kind of pop over your belly, even though they should be long enough, but they're just not like boop, like and you feel like baby Huey. It's those little
Yeah.
daily struggles.
Hmm.
Clothes are so weird, like, but you're totally right where you find the size clothes, the size pants, or you find a pair of pants that you love, and you put them on and you feel like $1,000,000, and it doesn't
Yes.
matter what other people see you because they could think you look wonderful in things that you don't feel comfortable in,
Yes.
but it matters you're the one walking around in them.
Hmm. There is so much to dig in here. I could do this all day and night with you. If you ever want to collab again, I'd love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, I want to show people your different pages so they can come find you. I mean, I really enjoy. Here we go. Okay, so here is your YouTube channel. Today I was digging into some of your latest videos. I love this natural flavors thing. I've always wondered about that because there's some companies that I love that use natural flavors, but some companies can say, I don't want this type of thing in my product, and it'll still not say natural flavors in it. The maltodextrin was eye opening, and I will be posting some clips of that on my channel later today. I was just watching the We Are Stronger Together because I completely agree. I don't care. I really don't care what you're eating. If you're eating whole foods, I think that's great. If you're not eating whole foods, I think we can still be friends.
Yeah,
But preferably you're eating more meat. Yeah. So you've got a great channel here, and then you were saying that you go live quite a bit.
I do.
Oh, that's amazing. And you're collaborating with different people. And then I was looking here. Here's your Facebook page that people need to come. You're also on Instagram.
I am on Instagram, I'm on Twitter or X or whatever you wanna call it, and I'm on TikTok. The only difference with TikTok is it's Keto Simple because I had Keto Simple, then my phone died, like, it just whatever it was doing, it didn't work anymore, so I had to do a hard reset, and then when I
Does that
tried to log
install
back
it?
into TikTok and when I logged back into TikTok, I couldn't log in and there was no like, 0 customer support, so there are 2
Mhm.
Keto Simples on TikTok, but only Keto Simple I mean, they're both mine technically. Nothing's happening on the other one, so just find the Keto Simple underscore, and that's me.
Awesome. Well, definitely everybody go out, follow Dustin. You won't regret it and find him on socials and we can all collaborate. So, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's really awesome because I had saw you, seen you walking around KPL and there's just like 350 people. So you're trying to like talk with everybody. And then we just happened to be standing near each other at the end of the event. And we started talking about stuff. And then I kind of get an understanding of who you are. And I want to know more, obviously. So I do a Saturday morning live when I have an opportunity and I bring people on and we talk as long as they want to. I don't have any time restrictions, just how long people want to talk. So,
You
yeah.
got 6 hours?
I mean, if you want to go for 6 hours, we'll go for 6 hours. We'll have to have potty breaks, but
Agreed, especially I like to drink my electrolytes, and now that I'm not being quite so restrictive, this is Coco Loco, and it's amazing, and it has sweetener in it, and I love it.
look at
So,
you go.
well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share. Bye.